Gurur-brahma, Gurur-vishnu, Gurur-devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody. Krishna Dasa here. Welcome you all to today's session. I think I also need to say the prayer to Guru and God. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva. Hope you can hear me clearly. Welcome again. Can someone remind me which shloka we finished last time?
70.
70?
Yeah, we have to do 71.
Okay. Let's start with 71 then. Modante Pitaro
Modante Pitaro
nṛtyanti devatāḥ
nṛtyanti devatāḥ
Sanaatha ceyaṁ
sa-nāthā cheyaṁ
bhūr-bhavati.
bhūr-bhavati.
The translation is, when such a pure devotee is born, their ancestors rejoice, the divine beings in heaven dance in joy, and this earth itself becomes sanctified. So we are talking about the devotees that we discussed in Shloka 69 and 70. So Naradji is saying, such a pure devotee, they have a very powerful impact on everybody. So there are examples. There are devotees like Prahalada, Mirabai, Hanuman, for example. He was such a devotee. And these are all devotees who had a great impact just by being somewhere. So if Hanuman's, like even today, people play Hanuman Chalisa in their homes. Because even the Chalisa of Hanuman is enough to sanctify your home, get rid of all impurities. See, just imagine the power if Hanuman himself was there in the home. So that is the power of such devotees, and that Naradji is bringing about here. I would like to explain one thing that Naradji talks about ancestors. He says the ancestors rejoice. So we are not talking about just devotees, biological ancestors. We are talking about all the people who have tried to lead a spiritual life in the past. All the people who have tried to be on the Bhakti Yoga in the past. All of them, they feel a fulfillment when they see such a devotee achieving the ultimate goal of Bhakti Yoga. So all of these devotees who have been trying, they all feel as if they have themselves achieved a success. They feel like that happy when they see some such devotee actually achieving success on the path of devotion. So in this path, there is no competition. In this path, there is no I am better, you are better mindset. In this path, we want everybody to succeed. And such a person, such a devotee, they become a perfect example of what everybody should aim to be. So we say lead by example, and we say the ultimate goal of life is Siddha Bhakti. So such devotees are the best example, and they help lead the path by example. So that's why they are so important. You know, the earth is considered as the wife of Bhagavan. So when a devotee who is like a hero comes to her rescue, in other words, when a devotee like a hero comes to rescue the earth, it is like we are uniting her with her husband. It's a very nice way of putting it. You know, in other words, this devotee, he is trying to shield the earth from all the negative forces, tamasic influences, and promotes a moral, ethical, and sattvic way of life. So in other words, such a devotee is, let us say, such a devotee is rescuing Mother Earth from all tamasic forces. So it is as if this devotee is helping Mother Earth unite back with her husband, because otherwise she is distracted with all these tamasic forces. They say just like waking up from a dream, it liberates us from that illusion of a dream. When a true devotee discovers the ultimate truth, it brings a sense of freedom to everybody around them, because they all get a glimpse of what the real truth is. They all get a glimpse of, oh, it's possible. This person just realized the absolute truth. It's possible. And that is reality. They all get a glimpse of that. That is why they say that such a pure devotee sanctifies everybody and everything around them. And that is pretty much their sole purpose, to now help everybody lead a better life. So, I don't know if Sulataji remembers, there were two types of saints we spoke about. Do you remember, Sulataji?
The one for whom day and night is night and
that is one. And then we also discussed about two types of saints. One who is spending time helping others. Sevanandi and
yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Sorry. Forgot.
Yeah, you can do a revision, but one of the types was Sevanandis. So they are the kind of saints who don't keep things to themselves. Once they achieve success on the path, they spend their life helping others also reach success on the path. So Naraji is talking about such pure devotees who are also Sevanandis. And he says they are a gift for the entire earth. And they sanctify everybody, sanctify everything around them. So in Ramcharitamanas, Uttarakhanda, Lord Shiva is telling Parvati, Sunu Uma Sukh Baye Sajajana, Te Janam Kutumba Jaha Jana. Listen, Uma, blessed is the family and happy are the good people where a devotee of Lord Ram is born. So in this verse, Lord Shiva is emphasizing the power and glory of being a devotee of Ram. So according to Shiva, the birth of such a devotee not only blesses their family, but brings happiness and honor to the entire world. So as you can see, Shiva is also talking about devotee of Ram. So that's why we say that this whole things about Shaivites and Vaishnavites and Shiva is better and Vishnu is better, that's all just human created headaches. Shiva himself had no problem with Vishnu. Vishnu had no problem with Shiva. It's a very beautiful, coexistence out there. Okay. So let's go to the next shloka, shloka 72. Nasti teshu jati vidya rupa kula dhana kriyadi bedah. The translation is, among such saints, there is no distinction based on caste, knowledge, beauty, family, wealth, and so on. Very important concept. This is very important because this emphasizes the idea that in the spiritual world, there is no distinction. There is no such thing as caste and religion, and they are all only a creation of this material world. So once you are on the spiritual path, none of them really make sense. So which means if you are born in a high caste, don't be proud of it. If you are born in a low caste, don't be ashamed of it. Because neither of them matters when you are on the path to Bhakti Yoga. Let us remind ourselves, because Krishna himself, one of the most powerful shlokas Krishna had said, 9.22, Ananyashchintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate. Tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. That's a very powerful assurance. Krishna says, I will take care of you. Who? Who is he going to take care of? Ananyas chintayanto mam. Those who are focusing on me. Ye jana paryupasate. Pari-upasate. Exclusively, worshipping me. Tesham nityabhiyuktanam. I mean, such single focus. This is all Krishna has asked. Krishna has not said, if you are born in a high caste, I'll take care of you. Or if you study the Vedas, I'll take care of you. If you are a scholar of Sanskrit, I'll take care of you. Krishna only says, if you are devoted to me, and if the quality of devotion is strong, focused, one-pointed and consistent, Krishna says, you become dear to me and I take care of you. That is the same idea that Naradji is telling us in Shloka 72, where he says, nothing matters. Nothing in the material, man, woman, nothing matters, caste, creed. Just focus on your devotion. It's a very assuring statement made by these great sages for us. Why I am emphasizing this is, it's a very profound idea. We discussed some of it in Bhagavad Gita also. And I can tell you, based on my own experience, it's extremely important. This one concept which a lot of people either don't explain or they don't understand is, sometimes we doubt whether God will really help us. Do we? Raise your hands if you have ever had a doubt. Okay, most of us have had that doubt. That is God really going to help? Have you introspected where that doubt comes from? Like, what is the real reason? What do you think? Tell me, what do you think could be a reason for us to have the doubt on whether God will really help me? Let us see. Suchita,
Fear, insecurity.
Insecurity, okay.
Fear, insecurity.
Fear, insecurity, excellent. Suchita, you raised your hands.
Expectations?
Okay.
No, I don't raise my hand, Guruji.
Okay. Sulata ji?
Ego.
Like, yeah. I have, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just, at least a little after enlightenment, I realized that I have been materialistic and I was depending on the temporary source of happiness without, now I understand just being focused and just being on the bhakti path. It's just like that emptiness which I have, and I'm hunting for happiness in all these materialistic things.
That's fine. All I'm asking is, sometimes we have this doubt whether God is really going to help or if God is really going to shower His grace on me. This happens to everybody. Even saints have this doubt at some point, Now, I have had this too, but after a lot of introspection, and then I go and revisit some shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita, then this becomes very clear what Krishna is saying. It just rings a bell like this, is that doubt comes mostly when we have self-doubt. When we have a doubt on ourselves. Sometimes we don't think we are eligible. Sometimes we don't think we are qualified. Sometimes we don't think we are good enough. There are many such doubts that come to our own mind. And that is what causes us to have this doubt on whether God is really going to grace us. You see? So that self-doubt is a problem. And this verse is another assurance that don't have any such doubts, because there is no real pre-qualification required. Doesn't matter what kind of a person you are. You can practice Ananya Chintan and you can get God's grace. So this is a very reassuring kind of a verse. I hope you're all understanding and reading and internalizing these things. So another thing that Naradji says is, when such a person's spiritual devotion matures, they are no longer limited by social norms or man-made laws, and such a person achieves complete freedom. And when they achieve complete freedom, what is happening is they are aligning with the will of God, will of Bhagavan. And what happens when they align with the will of Bhagavan? Then Naradji says that when anyone gets aligned like that with the will of Bhagavan, then their words and their actions all become words and actions of Bhagavan. Very profound. Very, very profound. This is one of the reasons why Krishna has said in the Bhagavad Gita, we have to approach saints with a lot of humility. You have to approach saints without pride. And because they are aligned with God, and because of which their words and actions are just like words and actions of God. But what happens? What do? We think they are crazy because we are not aligned, right? So we are still in the material world. This is where Tulataji's, you just mentioned the right thing. The day of a saint is night for a common person and vice versa. We question them. We are like, why are they dressed so badly, or why don't they do this, why don't they do that, and all of that. But the basic idea to understand is they are on the right path, they are aligned. We are not. And that is the reason we see them differently. And instead of ridiculing them, we are supposed to approach them with humility and try to understand what is the right path and how to get there. So in a way, this verse is also challenging us to question our own prejudice, our own preconceived notions, and learn to see the divine in everybody and everything. See, spiritual growth doesn't just mean personal transformation. Spiritual growth also means a very radical shift in how we perceive and interact with the world around us. How do we see the world? How do we see everybody? How do we see the problems? How do we see the opportunities? How do we even see God? That has to go through a transformation. That is spiritual growth. Can we go to the next shloka? Shloka 73. Yatah
Yatah
tadiyah.
tadiyah.
Yet another small and sweet shloka. It just means because they belong to him. See, among self-realized soul, there is no material distinction because they all belong to Bhagavan and they are all of his divine nature. So the self-realized soul knows that doesn't matter, like Sulata, Chitra, Simran, Poonam, Suchita, whatever. They are all just material manifestations, but they all can see and feel the divine within all of us, and they know that it is the same divine. So in other words, we just discussed in the previous shloka that for such elevated souls, there is no distinction, caste, creed, religion, there is no distinction. Why? Because they have already realized the truth and they already know that everything belongs to him. Everything is just a part of him only. So where is a question of differentiation? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has said this to Arjuna in chapter 10, verse 20, where Krishna says, I am the self, O Budakesha, seated in the hearts of all creatures. I am the beginning, the middle, and end of all things. This is what Krishna meant when he said this to Arjuna. Krishna was not trying to beat his own trumpet. Krishna was trying to say that is the reality. That everything is me only. It's all me. So learn to see that. And Krishna also made it very clear that everybody came from me and everybody is going to come back to me eventually. That is the universal truth. Now, the Upanishads also mention the same thing, although they mention it in slightly different ways. And so there is something called as, there is a text called as Mahavakyas. So, Mahavakya basically means Mahavakya, great saying. They have documented the fundamental principle of all the Upanishads. And the Upanishads, they all define or they all talk about the non-dualistic or Advaitic philosophy of Vedanta. So, there are these 4 Mahavakyas that I want to talk to you about. This is another Leela of, I just can't help but talk about it. And I definitely don't mean any judgment, so please don't misunderstand me. And I'm not judging or I'm not criticizing anything at all like that, but it is just an observation. And I feel amused also, and I feel astounded also, like because Krishna, Sai Baba, they all unfailingly do this. Because I always say that don't intellectualize too much. I always say that intellect has a purpose and then keep it aside, because otherwise it becomes a hindrance. It just feeds our ego. It becomes an ego exercise, right? And what I have seen is sometimes some devotees, they keep some doubts in their mind. And there is some intellectual something going on in their mind. But they're still trying devotion and everything, but that still stays. And somehow, for some reason, Krishna makes them wait for the answer. When the answer comes, he will keep them away. I don't know, but I've seen it so many times. For example, Ekansh, there is one wonderful devotee, his name is Ekansh, he's in our new Bhagavad Gita class. He called me up one day before we started the Sai Baba session, and he asked me a question about Sai Baba. And I could sense that it was the intellect. It was purely an intellect exercise. So I told him, devotion doesn't work like this. I can explain, but that is pointless because I don't want to debate or anything. But you need to really approach this as a pariprashna rather than a prashna, right? And then we forgot about it. After 2 months, almost 2 months, the day I was explaining that very concept, because it is there in one of the Sai Baba's Satcharitra chapters, that same thing the author talks about. And I was explaining the same thing. That day, for some reason, he just could not attend. Otherwise, he's very regular. And the next day, he pings me and asks me, Guruji, what did you teach yesterday? I said, I taught that very question you had. So Baba wants you to wait now. More Shraddha, more Saburi. Just like that, Lakshmiji has had this question about Aham Brahmasmi. She has spoken to me many times about it. And she is very regular. And today we are going to talk exactly about that, and she's not able to attend. So that just was the deja vu moment for me, that these are all leelas. We should look at them as leelas of God. So what are the 4 Mahavakyas? The first one is Prajnanam Brahma. That means consciousness is Brahman. It is there in Aitareya Upanishad, which comes from Rig Veda. So this saying basically means the supreme knowledge or consciousness, which is Brahman, it is the only reality of the universe. And that is why it explains that everything is inherently divine, because all consciousness is Brahman. And the second Mahavakya is Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. This comes from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which is derived from Yajurveda. And what that means, it pretty much says that you have to realize that your identity is the same as, there is no separation. You are a part of God. So that is why Aham Brahmasmi, you have to, this is what we discussed in Bhagavad Gita. Aham Brahmasmi doesn't mean I am God. Aham Brahmasmi means whatever I think as I is a false I. It's based on ego. The real I is actually God. So I need to make room for God. That is the true meaning of Aham Brahmasmi. It is not something to feel proud of. It is something to feel humble about. That we are unnecessarily identifying with a false ego. That is not me. Aham Brahmasmi. I am not this. The third Mahavakya is Tattvamasi. You are that. This comes from Chandogya Upanishad, which is derived from Samaveda. This says that the individual you with all the attributes is identical to the eternal changeless reality. It's the same thing. This is a way of teaching where the teacher is trying to tell the student that doesn't matter what all attributes you have or what all attributes you identify with, that God is Saguna Brahman. That God is a superset of all possible attributes. So no matter what attributes you have, it is all God, because that is a part of God only. So that is what Tattvamasi means. And the fourth Mahavakya is I am Atma Brahma. That means this self is Brahman. This comes from Mandukya Upanishad, which is a derivative of Atharva Veda. So we have seen 4 Vedas and 4 Upanishads derived from these 4 Vedas, and all of them having a Mahavakya. The fourth Mahavakya, the self is Brahman. It points to the realization that the individual self, Atman, Once you free it from the false identity, once you free it by getting rid of ego, you will realize that it is nothing but Brahman only. So as you can see, all the 4 Vedas, they have all said the same thing in 4 slightly different ways. That is why when we started Bhagavad Gita, we said, the Rig Veda says, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. There is one truth, but the wise people describe it in different ways. That doesn't mean there are different truths. It just means that people are describing that one truth in different ways. So here, that is why I wanted to speak about these 4 Mahavakyas, just to give you an idea that although they all come from a totally different Veda, they are all inherently talking about the same thing, about the unity of the Atman with Bhagavan. This is what the yogi who is succeeded, who has got Siddha Bhakti, sees. This is what that yogi understands. That is why this yogi does not see any differentiation between you and me and they or them. Because they can see everybody same, because they have that level of, this is not just some political wokeness where we say that, oh, all men are made equal. This is a realization where in their reality, in their perception, they are able to perceive the equality. That should be our goal. So when we say unity, we want, like, what is yoga? Yoga means union. Union with God. What does union with God mean? Doesn't mean we go hug a idol of God. Union with God basically means we come to this experiential reality that, aha, I can feel it. The same Atma I have, this person has, the tree has, the dog has, I feel it. You know, that feeling will come. And when that comes, you know that you are aligned with the will of God. We should all aim for that feeling one day. You know, this is one of the reasons why some organizations, especially like ISKCON, for example, they tell everybody, we call everybody Prabhuji. Like I have also mentors from Bhakti Marga where they call everybody just Jai Gurudev. You know, so the idea basically is you want to start cultivating that mindset while you are on the path. Like you cannot treat the other person inferior or other person as a competitor and one fine day suddenly expect to have a realization that everybody is same. It has to be a gradual, it's a process as we discussed, right? So the part of the process is somehow telling ourselves, reminding ourselves. How do we do that? That is why we have all of these, you know, Prabhujis and calling people as Gurudis and all of that. So I hope that makes sense. In the next couple of shlokas, Naradji is going to provide further tips on how Bhakti Yogi can ensure success on the path. They are small shlokas. I think we can, they're not big. So I think we can quickly finish 2 more shlokas if you're all okay with it. Everybody's okay. I know some people are feeling hot, but it's only going to get hotter because summer is yet to come. So I think the sooner we finish, the better for you. So for your sake, I will try to finish it as soon as possible. So let's go to Shloka 74. Vado navalambhyaha.
Vado
Vado
navalambhyaha.
navalambhyaha.
Very good. Very important for a lot of us who are very intellectually oriented. So Naradji says, do not resort to argumentation. Avoid arguing. See, it is very tempting because the intellect wants to take control. The intellect wants to show off its strength. However, as discussed earlier, the job of the intellect is to point us towards Bhagavan. But once we get on the path, then we should not be attached to the intellect. The intellect has done its job. On the path, you shouldn't be holding on to the ladder after you have already climbed where you wanted to climb. Because the intellect can only show you the path. The intellect can never take you to Bhagavan. You need to totally understand and believe that. Okay, the intellect can only show you the path and it can only show you how you can reach the goal. It cannot take you to the goal. because Bhagavan is beyond intellect. You can never argue and prove the existence of Bhagavan. You can only realize and experience Bhagavan. And no other conclusion matters. Arguments only feed our ego. And they distract us from the ultimate goal. That is why we have to avoid arguments on the path of bhakti. Once you are on the path of bhakti yoga, till then it is okay. Debate and argue and intellectualize and all of that. But once you are on the bhakti yoga, path of bhakti yoga, you have to eliminate all of that. That no longer serves the purpose. What does means? It also means we have to stop doubting the lessons taught by the scriptures through our gurus. Why? Because again, doubts are a function of ignorance. And doubts are a function of the intellect. But it's the intellect. Your intellect has already shown you the path. The intellect has said, go to this teacher, or the intellect has said, go look at and read Bhagavad Gita, or listen to Krishna. Intellect has done his job. After that, again, oh, but Krishna is contradicting himself. That is a waste. Because at that point, we have to now start approaching it with humility, with the faith that everything will make sense eventually, as long as we keep consistently learning and consistently going on the path. That is the teaching here. See, another thing to remind everybody, we discussed early on in Bhagavad Gita that there are two types of knowledge. One is ascending knowledge and one is descending knowledge. Ascending knowledge you all understand. That is all material knowledge. We call the scriptures as descending knowledge because it has come from a superior force. Because it comes from a superior force, you can say that I don't understand, but you should not say that I don't believe. You should not say that, oh, I will believe what the scripture says if somebody proves something to me. That is a waste. That is only slowing your progress. The scriptures are going to stay the way they are. And whoever wants to benefit will benefit. Okay, that is a very important thing to keep in mind. Let's go to the last shloka for today, Shloka 75. Bahulya Vakasatvat Anyatatvaścha. Very nice. I can see that you are all getting much better in pronouncing Sanskrit shlokas. That is so nice. Unknowingly, you are developing that skill, building that skill. So, the translation is: we should avoid argumentation also due to the multitude of possibilities and intermediateness. In other words, there are just so many possibilities. So, getting into argument is pointless. If there is only two possibilities and then you are getting into a discussion, that is still understandable. But if you know that there are infinite possibilities, then what is the point of even getting into a debate? Because you know that there are infinite possibilities, right? That is what it means. Because there are so many possibilities, bahulyavakashatvad, and also because these possibilities are uncertain and indeterminate. As discussed earlier, our understanding of the world is dependent on our perception, and our perception is dependent on our senses. And we know that our perception is severely limited by the capability of our senses. Correct? Remember the example of those prisoners who spent all their life in a cave. They're just looking at a shadow. Remember that, right? Can you argue with them that no, this is not the real light, there is sunlight? Can you? You can't. Because it's beyond their perception. A person who has never ever seen sunlight, you cannot argue and convince that person that there is something called sunlight and how great that sunlight is. What is the only way you can convince that person? What is the only way that person will know about sunlight? Is if they themselves experience sunlight. All you have to do is take them out of the cave and show them sunlight. Just like that, there is no point arguing about God anymore or arguing about Bhagavan anymore. What is needed is you first get into a position of experiencing Bhagavan. And once you experience Bhagavan, you can just show others Bhagavan. Because Bhagavan is beyond all sense perception. You can never theorize Bhagavan, you can only realize Bhagavan. In the Katha Upanishad, there is a shloka that says, Anor Anyan Mahato Mahiyam Atma Asya Janto Nihito Guhyam. The self, smaller than the smallest, greater than the greatest, is hidden in the heart of the creature. It explains the paradoxical nature of the self, Atman, which is also the nature of Bhagavan. What is the paradoxical nature? The paradoxical nature is, it is smaller than the smallest, or subtler than the subtlest. And also, it is greater than the greatest. You see the problem. The problem is, the nature of the Atman, nature of God, as described by various saints and scriptures, is it is this smaller than the smallest also, and it is larger than the largest also. You see the problem? What we are trying to explain here. In other words, now if you try to get into arguments, which way are you going to argue? Because whichever way you try to argue, you can go endlessly arguing. Because we cannot perceive that which is smaller than the smallest. You cannot perceive it. You can only theorize, and you can endlessly theorize. Just like that, you cannot perceive that which is larger than the largest. So either way, the argument can go on without conclusively proving anything. It is guaranteed. So that is why the saints have said, we have all tried it. We all know it is pointless. So our humble request to all you bhaktas is, please avoid argumentation, because argumentation is a waste of energy. It is not going to help prove anything. So get out of that and start focusing on how to realize God rather than how to theorize God. There is a story, very famous story, where Gautama Buddha was teaching under the tree, sitting under the tree teaching, where one man comes and he confidently shouts at Buddha. He says, "Oh Buddha, God does not exist." Buddha calmly smiles and he says, "You are right." So what else will the man say? He goes away. Later on, after a couple of days, another man comes and he very confidently yells at Buddha, "Oh Buddha, I know God exists." And Buddha smiles calmly and says, "You are right." There's nothing else this man can also say. He goes away. Now, Buddha's disciple is very confused. He's telling Buddha, how can you agree with both men? They were saying something contradictory, right? One person says God is not there, one person says God is there, and how could you agree with both of them? Buddha, I don't understand this. What is going on? Then Buddha says, they are both right based on their own experience. Very profound statement. The first man has never experienced God, so according to him, God does not exist. He says, whereas the second man has experienced God, that is why he knows God exists. So their truths are a reflection of their experience, not of an objective reality. It is very profound. Understanding this itself will take us on the path to calmness, take us on the path to getting out of arguments and focusing on Bhakti Yoga, because Buddha says that because you cannot theorize God, it is not an objective reality. It's not a thing that you can point and say it is black and it is 1 kilo heavy and it is 1 meter long. You cannot do that because it is beyond all of that. So you either experience it or you don't experience it. If you experience it, yes, it exists. If you don't experience it, it doesn't exist. That is the reality. Beautiful, right? This is pretty much Buddha's teachings. If you want to know what Buddhism is all about, some people misrepresent Buddha and say that, oh, Buddha said there is no God. That is not the truth. This is the essence of Gautam Buddha's teachings. Gautam Buddha said, just because somebody is telling you, don't accept and say that, yes, there is God. So in other words, don't become a parrot and start saying God, 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 just because somebody came and told you, or just because somewhere it is written. Likewise, he also said, just because you don't understand, don't reject. Your goal has to be experiencing the truth yourself. That was Buddha's teaching. And in a way, that is why Buddha advocated the path that Buddha advocated. That is why it is called as the middle way, the middle path. Because Buddha said, don't fanatically accept God. That is one path. And don't be delusional and totally deny God also. He said that is also wrong, because the atheism is also wrong and fanaticism is also wrong. Buddha said what is required is that you get on the path, and your goal should be to analyze and realize the truth. Whatever the truth is, you should try and realize the truth. So that is why Buddha's path is a middle path, and that is the same thing we are asking all the Bhakti yogas to also do. Sri Krishna has shown us the path. Sri Krishna has shown us how to use the intellect without pride. So what Krishna said in this topic is, use the intellect without pride to inquire into the nature of divinity and how we should eventually rise to a higher level. And once we are rising to a higher level, we are focused on the experiential reality of Bhagavan. How? We are focused on the experiential reality through Bhakti Yoga. This is what Krishna said, actually. And Naraji is illustrating the same principle here in these Shlokas. So I think with that, we can call it a day. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you spending your time, precious time, and attending these classes. Some of you are feeling hot, some of you are, I really appreciate, like Suchita ji, appreciate you are somewhere else in a, yeah, and you still spending the time. So grateful to you for that. May Krishna bless you all abundantly. So with that, I'll stop talking. I can stop the recording as well. And let me do that first.